Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Many of the nearly 500,000 residents of our city's public housing developments are often forced to put up with leaks and mold and broken elevators, heating issues, and other decaying conditions in their buildings. By many estimates, the amount of money to fix those problems runs into the tens of billions of dollars. But the current chair of the New York City Housing Authority has proposed a blueprint to bring the capital investment that is so desperately needed. He's also urging the Biden administration and the democratically controlled Congress to increase funding and support the public housing here and around the country. The chairman and CEO of the New York City Housing Authority is Gregory Russ. He joins us now. Good evening, Mr. Russ. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Errol. How are you?
Let me start with the PACT program that we just saw. The companies that are improving and maintaining these NYCHA developments, they're not doing it out of charity, right? So what's in it for them?
Well, they are receiving a benefit from this, obviously. They're in it to help raise the money in the capital, but they're also able to have the opportunity to earn a profit off of that as well. That's the nature of that public-private partnership, and that would be true on any of the deals involving some private partner that wants to make an investment, have a long-term interest in the property, and see a return on that investment.
Are they using non-union labor by and large?
No, I don't believe so. I believe this is all covered labor.
Okay. Let's move on to your blueprint. You're proposing the transferring of 110,000 apartments to a newly created public entity called a Public Housing Preservation Trust. And then the repairs and improvements, you say, will be made faster. Funding would switch to Section 8. So again, there'd be the bundling of Section 8 vouchers. And you say it would be a public entity, meaning this Public Housing Preservation Trust would be created by the state. It wouldn't be for-profit. It wouldn't be nonprofit. It would be sort of government created, and it would guarantee full tenant rights and protections. So it's interesting, but explain how this would leverage outside investment.
So, first of all, thank you for a very accurate summary of what the trust is intended to do. I appreciate that. And the trust is actually converting to Section 8, as you indicated. That brings in additional subsidy. In fact, a lot more subsidy per unit. That additional subsidy is then used to borrow or bond to raise the capital, much like any municipal authority would do to raise capital for their infrastructure. So the investment is a lot more distant, if I could use that term, and the trust is at the pivot point with NYCHA as the partner, and in between the two public entities is the restored public housing.
So there'd be bondholders, pension funds, big pools of outside money that would buy these bonds and come up with the billions of dollars that would then be used to repair New York City Housing Authority developments. And here again, these outside developers are hoping for a steady return, not an outrageous return, but I guess a reliable one. Is that the idea?
Well, in the trust model, the returns are really limited to a bondholder is receiving interest for making the investment. If we have a straight up loan, we might have things like construction loans. They would have an interest rate attached. So those things would be fixed at the outset, and that would be the private contribution would be fixed either by the interest rates on the bonds or the interest rates on the loans.
I want to go through a couple of points that I know a lot of tenants will raise over and over again. You're planning under this scenario to really keep protections in place around due process, rights of return, the rent level being capped at 30% of income. All of that, is that going to be like sort of bulletproof and in writing for tenants?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's in the legislation that we're proposing to send to Albany. It's spelled out very clearly. In addition, the legislation requires, and we would likely do this anyway, since there is a ground lease, the ground lease runs with the property, and the ground lease would include all the same protections as a deed restriction on that property. And we've also talked to some about providing a resident rights and protections contract just to make sure that everyone can see and hold, some of the promises we're trying to make here.
We're in the middle of a contest for determining the next mayor of the city. Have the candidates for mayor, I've seen one or two of them that have at least referenced the blueprint, have they signed on, by and large, these candidates?
I can't speak to the individual candidates. I know a couple have referenced the blueprint. And, we're open to discussing the specifics of this with them. And, we're hopeful that some might find a way to support it.
Yeah, I raise that in part because my understanding is your contract does not expire necessarily with the de Blasio administration. I always thought that the NYCHA chairman and CEO served at the pleasure of the mayor. Is that true for you or not?
No, that was changed with the HUD agreement. Once the chair was appointed and interviewed by all the parties, then that appointment is subject to the parties taking action for the position, not just the mayor.
Got it. So you're planning to stay a while under a new mayor?
I would certainly be doing that. I can, provided HUD and the Southern District agree, yes.
Okay, fair enough. And what do you see as the potential challenges in getting this blueprint established? You've got to get the cooperation and the buy-in, not just of tenants, but also of lawmakers, of investors, of lots of people. Where do you see your biggest challenge?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is establishing trust with the residents. I think we have been down so many roads so many times. The residents know this. The residents ask the best questions. They see what has failed in the past. They have been at the effect of that. So I think our focus is really on how do we reestablish the relationship, because the units are in marginal condition or worse sometimes. We need to reestablish that relationship. So we have been